Hi. I just thought I will take a few minutes and talk about a recent project I did where we went and built something in Google Sheets and Google Apps Script to automate something. So, in one of the schools I work in, the transport system, we wanted to bring it into some sort of tracking, build automations as much as possible so that we can get some data and then analyze the data, right? So the transport in charge wrote this document and said, "This is what I want, yada, yada, yada." He explained it. Wonderful, amazing. I took a photo so I can work on it. I thought I'll build it module by module initially. But then when I sat down to work, I said, you know what? Let me try something different. So I took this photo, I went to Claude Chat, and I said, "Hey, Claude, this was written by the transport in charge, one of the schools. This is what it is. We want a Google Sheets, a Google Apps script, yada, yada, yada. Our primary goals are to track which vehicles in the fleet are consuming more fuel, more maintenance costs, so that we can understand which ones are failing, need to be replaced. Can you give a detailed note about the items written here as a .md file? .md is markdown. That's the format, which I want to use as a starting point to work on this project. For those of us who don't know, markdown is to documents what CSV, comma separated value format, is to spreadsheets. If you don't understand any of that, that's fine. Basically, it's a pure text file which can have formatting and will be read as formatting by certain editors. It asked me some questions here, but it was not clear about a couple of things. I clarified it here, and then it gave me the project note. As you can see, this is fully formatted, but if I actually move to the raw file, this is actually in text. So that's what a .md file is, a markdown file, yeah? So I took this markdown file, I created a new folder in my Mac called transport. I put the .md file here, fleet data project not. Then I went to Claude Code, right? This is Claude Code, as you can see, right? I said, read the .md file. I went to the transport folder and I said, read the .md file, plan out the entire project in Google Sheets and Google Apps Script. Since we are non-technical, we need simple, down-to-earth, non-verbose instructions. The entire system needs to be efficient, easy to use modern UI/UX design principles, look good with pastel colors, add in anything you think could be useful, ask me any questions you may have before proceeding. Now, as you can see, this is a very simple prompt. I am lazy. I will not type more. So I've seen many of these guides that tell you, define a role, define this, that, they have acronyms, RTAC, RM, whatever. I don't use any of that. I'm lazy. I can't keep doing that. But here are a couple of things I do, right? So I ask for efficiency. I ask for easy to useness. I ask for good design. It varies. I just say modern UI/UX design principles, and I say it has to look good. That actually helps when you're building Google Sheets. Why do I say pastel colors? If I don't say pastel colors, what ends up happening many times is the Google Sheets is built in dark mode. Now, as you can see in this video, I love dark mode, but not everybody finds it easily readable. But I generally find majority are okay with pastel colors that look good versus dark mode that doesn't look good. That's why, right? Now, I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but this is what I found in my workflow, and that's what I do. Then two other things I've been adding in the last several months is I ask it to add in any other features that Claude thinks would be useful. And then I ask it to ask me any questions that Claude may have before proceeding, right? These two are like game changers. Asking it to add features I cannot see helps because Claude has kind of the sum total knowledge of human development. Not everything, but a majority. And so it would know so many other transport management trackers built. So it would know what is good, what is not good. Yeah. And then when I ask it to ask any questions, I do not allow it to assume. So when it has questions, it asks me, I clarify, and then proceeds. But for this project, I think it was pretty straightforward because we'd already given it that markdown document. So the questions it asked were quite dumb. I gave it the answer. I mean, not dumb. I didn't think they were very consequential. So I gave it the answers and then it built. As you can see, it has built it. And note, I did not ask it to build a mobile-friendly web app. But because it's a transport system, Claude assumed that drivers will have to enter. I don't know if it asked me that, but whatever. So if drivers have to enter, it has to be mobile friendly because drivers will be on their mobile phones. And so it built the interface as mobile friendly. As you can see, it shared screenshots and said, this is what I'm building. And it put all the files in the fleet system folder. It gave me a setup guide markdown file. As you can see, if you worked with Google Sheets and Google Apps scripts extensively, then many of these is self-explanatory. You don't have to really need instructions, but having them is good, right? Then, yeah, what did it build? As you can see, this is the Google Sheet. I took all those files. Uh, it built those files inside this subfolder, fleet system. As you can see, there's about 16 files, 15 that I have to copy paste. One is a setup guide. So I copy pasted all of them into Google Apps Script. I switched on project settings where I enabled show app script JSON. So I could see the JSON file as well. I copy pasted that. All of the code is here. Yeah, all 16 files. Then I went here, I refreshed it. I got this custom menu. I said set up workbook. It came and set up all of these tabs. As you can see, none of the tabs have data in them. We've not started entering. I'm not going into the staff tab because we have names of staff there. Yeah. The settings folder, settings tab is where you can enter stuff like the name, the app title you want on the web app, other settings, units, emails for alerts that you want to, they're saying. The system built it so that you can get expiry alerts for RC, FC, insurance for the vehicles. Yeah. All of these details are here, and this is the app. Remember, I didn't do much prompting beyond 5 or 6 lines. The transport in charge gave me a document. I fed it 5 or 6 lines. Here we go. They are supposed to start with vehicles and drivers. They will add vehicle data. Once vehicle data is added, you can go to fuels and say, select the vehicle. And you can enter all these details. How did you pay? Which station did you fill in? Who was the driver? Once you've entered all that data. Right, you can add maintenance. You can say whether it was scheduled, breakdown, accident, and at what odometer was the maintenance and all of this. Yeah. You can add trips that they take if you want. You can add the documents. You can add which vehicle, what kind of document, number, whatever, all of that. And then you go to, dashboard. So when you go to the dashboard, you get the total active vehicles, the kilometers driven, average cost per kilometer, the vehicles, number of vehicles you have to keep an eye on, and which are those vehicles that you have to keep an eye on, the cost per kilometer in the latest month, and the documents that are expiring soon. Now remember, none of this was built by me specifically saying build this. I had a document where there were brief notes. If you actually looked at the document at the beginning of the video, you'll understand it wasn't a very explanatory document. It was just saying this, this, this. We didn't say what you have to do with that. But then I did go and say what my goals are out of this whole project, what I'm trying to track, and that it's a transport in charge who has given me that. And we want to automate this in Google Sheets and Google Apps Script. And here we are. So that's the beauty of this. Yeah. AI, generative AI can be extremely powerful, but it is dumb. You have to treat it like it is dumb. Now, this is an internal tool. I just need to caution something. This is an internal tool, so I didn't have to build in security, safeguards, all those things. If I was building this as a public consumer-facing app, I cannot stop here. I need to ensure that there are safeguards. You can have all kinds of threats when you launch this publicly. And you need to ensure that your public-facing app or web app or whatever you're building, whatever tool you're building, is very secure from all kinds of threats, or at least the majority of threats. Now, since we are building internal tools, I really don't need to focus on that, thank God. But this is where the things are. So, hope this was useful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or reach out to me. Thank you so much.